This is a review of the Oceans unit. We're talking today about the motions of the ocean. So how does the ocean move? The first one is waves. Waves are caused by the wind, and they're what you think of when you think of ocean movement. When you're on the beach and you're playing in the water and the water is hitting your ankles or your knees, those are waves, and that's the wind blowing and making that wave. Then if you go to the beach and you notice that sometimes the water is all the way up the beach and there's no sand. Sometimes the water is very far down the beach and there's a lot of sand. That's called the tide. And the tide is the bulging of water caused by the gravitational pull of the moon. In other words, the moon pulls the water to make it go bulging out. There's a high tide and a low tide. And tide is the level of the water or how far it goes up the beach. So high tide means that the water is very high. There's not a lot of beach left. Low tide means that the water is very low. There is a lot of beach. Last, you have the two types of currents, surface currents and deep water currents. Surface currents are when we were watching the video and the person was blowing in the straw and causing the water to move and swirl the little pieces of paper on top of the water. That was a surface current, and they kind of made these swirls. And that's because surface currents are caused by the wind, just like our breath in the straw was the wind. They look like a river on top of the water that pushes you. So remember in Finding Nemo when we watched that clip and they were with the turtles and it was pushing them in this kind of river at the top of the water. That's a surface current. The Gulf Stream is the most important one for us. It goes from North America to Europe and it changes our weather because it's moving or pushing the warm water and cold water. Here is a picture or a map of that Gulf Stream. We always remember the Gulf Stream because it is right next to us. Here we are over here on this side in the United States, and it goes all the way to Europe over here on the right. Then we have our deep water currents. So the surface current is like a swirl. The deep water current is like an up and down. And that's caused by the temperature changes. So this one was when we had the red water and the blue water. And the red water was hot and the blue water was cold. And the red water sunk to the red water stayed at the top. Sorry, the hot water stayed at the top. And the blue water sunk to the bottom, right? And that is that deep water current. Basically, the water just goes in this up and down because the water is hot and up, and then it cools down and sinks. And then it warms up and goes back up, and then it cools down and sinks. So those are the motions of the ocean.